Okay, I believe we are live on YouTube. If not, let's go live on YouTube. And we are welcoming everyone to our conversation today, Empowering Women in the AI Economy, Opportunity, Access, and Small Business Support. I'm Melvette Hill from the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity, and we're welcoming you to a great panel discussion today. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Yukio Ida, to get us started.
Great. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. I just want to run through a little bit of our agenda for our time together, and it'll be an exciting conversation around AI. We'll do some introductions. We'll share a little bit about what our Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity is all about. Have a great panel discussion, and just share a AI event that is coming up on Wednesday as well. So during our time together, I understand that this isn't a webinar format, but please, feel free to take care of yourself, eat lunch, have a snack, do your drinks. And we have a Q&A on the bottom of your screen where you have the different Zoom options. So if you can just put questions in the Q&A. I believe today our chat might not be working, but please use the Q&A for all your good questions. And this is our team at the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity. We are a team of 9, and Melvette Hill, as you saw, is our executive director, and I'm Yukio Ida, Associate Director of Parent Leadership and Family Engagement. We'll do some introductions later, but just also want to make note that Megan Baker from our team is on here, as well as Werner, who is helping us behind the scenes on our Zoom, and Rosemary Lopez is here as well. So that's our team. We might be small, but we do a lot of different things. So I'm going to share a little bit about what our mission and vision is for the commission. We are in the legislative branch of the government. We are not necessarily the lawmakers, but we are the ones that inform and engage policymakers about constituent needs. So we're like that, the liaison between both sides. We bring things up from the community, as well as bringing things from the legislature and making sure that community understands how laws and policies are going to be impacting them. We are also a nonpartisan agency with a data-driven cross-cultural approach to policy innovation. We serve a lot of different people as our constituents, and we're always making sure to base it off of data and understanding the intersectional work that we do, and always coming up with new things and how we can make sure that our constituents are being able to thrive in Connecticut. We work to eliminate disparities by identifying opportunities, building connections, and promoting change. We love doing what we do, always being a connector, right? And making sure that everyone in our community is taken care of and have what they need, the access and opportunity to all these great things that our state offers. And our vision is to serve the legislature and the people. Again, of course, we are that tie between the two, by promoting best practices and driving sound public policy, providing a source of trusted information, breaking barriers, bridging communities, and promoting opportunities, helping to build a more equitable and accessible state for all residents and future generations. So this is a little bit of what we do. I'm going to pass it back to Melvette to get us started on our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Yukio. So good day, everyone, and welcome to today's crucial conversation about empowering women in the AI economy. Again, my name is Melvette Hill, Executive Director of the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity. We are a non-legislative commission of the Connecticut General Assembly. And I'm sorry, we are a legislative commission, which is nonpartisan. I'm thrilled to serve as your moderator for this really important conversation. So we stand at a truly pivotal moment in technological history. Artificial intelligence is reshaping every sector, of our economy, from healthcare and education to manufacturing and finance. Yet, as we build this AI-powered future, we risk leaving half of our talent behind. Women remain significantly underrepresented in AI roles, from technical positions to leadership roles in AI companies. This isn't just a gender equity issue, it's an economic imperative. According to the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report in 2024, women represented just 30% of the AI workforce globally. The algorithms deciding who gets a job interview, whose loan application is approved, and whose health symptom gets flagged for follow-up were built overwhelmingly by people who do not look like most of the world's population. And that is not a design flaw. It is a design choice that comes with consequences. Up Level, a female forward technology platform and social network designed to provide a secure AI powered digital ecosystem for women to connect and learn and advance professionally, is really looking at this issue closely. I've spent some time with them. This company was founded in 2021 by former Alphabet Google executive Shubhi Rao. And they are focusing on solving the lack of safety, privacy, and tailored resources for women in traditional social media and professional networking spaces. And on a recent podcast, Rao shared the 5 critical areas where women need AI that works for them. Those areas are healthcare, professional development, financial services, athletics, and personal security. She also talked about 2 areas that we should have some concern. Number one, biased data architecture. So research from Berkeley Haas Center for Equity, Gender, and Leadership revealed a striking finding in 2023. Nearly half of the 133 AI systems they evaluated demonstrated significant gender bias. This isn't about malicious intent, it's about flawed foundations. AI systems learn from the data they're fed. And when that training data predominantly reflects male perspectives, communication styles, and work patterns, the resulting artificial intelligence inherently serves one demographic better than others. And so companies like UpLevel are really addressing that core issue by developing some comprehensive gender inclusive data sets. We always talk a lot about data here at the Commission, and recognizing that true AI equity requires fixing the problem at its source rather than applying superficial corrections later. The other piece here is that when we're looking at those 5 critical areas that affect women, those areas represent the spheres where AI-powered decisions carry the greatest weight in women's lives, where inadequate representation and training data creates the most harmful gaps. So take healthcare as an example. In 2022, Nature Medicine analysis demonstrated that clinical AI systems trained primarily on male patient information produce substantially more diagnostic errors than when treating women. This pattern underscores why developing AI with women's experiences at the center isn't about creating a specialized market segment. It's about establishing the minimum standard for effective, equitable artificial intelligence across all of those essential life domains. And so Connecticut has a unique opportunity to lead in this space. Our state has long been the home to innovative companies and world-class educational institutions. We are leading and trying to lead in the AI and quantum spaces. But to truly capitalize on the AI economy, we must ensure that women have equal access to participate, to lead, and to benefit from this transformation. And so today's panel brings together some leaders who are tackling this challenge in this conversation from different angles. We're looking at education and workforce development and entrepreneurship and, of course, policy. Our discussion today will be candid about the challenges and optimistic about the solutions. And we'll examine so many things, from early STEM education in our K through 12 schools to state level policies that could accelerate progress. Yes, indeed. And so before we dive into our questions today with our esteemed panel, I would love for our distinguished panelists to introduce themselves. I'm going to go first to Megan Baker.
Hello, my name is Megan Baker. I am the lead Asian American Pacific Islander policy analyst for the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity. Really grateful to be here. This kind of tangentially rides off of some work that I did before my time at the Commission with the Lieutenant Governor's Office on women equity in the workforce, especially with STEM and STEAM. So thank you for having me, and it's great to see so many friendly faces on the screen.
Thank you so much, Megan. And we're going to go to Kara Casimiro.
Hi, my name is Kara Casimiro. I'm the superintendent of the Danbury Public Schools. I have been in the system here in Danbury for over 29 years and has served as director of curriculum instruction, assistant superintendent for teaching and learning, and then in the last 2 years, superintendent. We are also in the process of transforming teaching and learning and what that looks like in the high school experience here in Danbury, which is, I believe, why I was invited to the conversation today, which I'm happy to be a part of. But a big part of that is really also creating opportunities and equity. And I think we'll be diving into that in a little bit. So thank you. Thank you for having me here today, Mobet.
Thank you. And next to Haritha Subramanian.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Haritha. I go by she, her pronouns. I am vice president of the undergraduate student government here at the Storrs campus of the University of Connecticut. As you all may know, UConn is a huge research campus. We um, have a lot of different programs, and we are a huge contributor to the state workforce and the state economy. So I'm really glad to be here today. I myself, I am a political science, music, and women's reproductive health major on the Masters of Public Policy fast track. And outside of USG, I also serve as secretary of the Asian Pacific American Coalition, where we work a lot with Megan Baker and the AAPI Affairs Commission.
Thank you so much, Aretha. And certainly all of those majors that you just said, your triple major, all of those are going to be affected and are affected by AI. So glad to have you in the space today. And then finally, we have Yukio Ida, who kind of introduced herself. Yukio, is there anything you would add?
Sure, yeah. Yuki Yoida again. I think I'm here, some with my concerns of my daughter who is going to college and wondering, post-college what life will be like for her, and also as a older woman in the workforce, and how do I continue to build my skills so that I can also stay in the workforce as well. So those are some of the lenses I am bringing into the space.
Thank you so much, Yukio. And then I'm going to remind our participants again, on your screen, there's a Q&A. If you have questions along the way, please ask them in the Q&A, and we will either answer them live or in the Q&A box for you. Also, I would like to give thanks to our colleague Werner Oyenadel, who is in the space with us as our producer today for the webinar. We are also being streamed live on YouTube. So hello to our followers out there. So I want to get into the panel. We have a lot to cover today, but really setting the stage. I tried to offer some of the backdrop in our opening, but want to go to all of our panelists to get us started and ask this question of, what does empowering women in the AI economy mean to you? And why is this conversation critical right now? I'm going to start with you, Haritha, and then go to Dr. Casimiro.
Of course, I think empowering women starts in schools, right? I grew up, it was kind of reflecting back on growing up, going through the public education system here, um, seeing organizations like Girls Who Code and trying to encourage women to get into the computer science, engineering space, and just overall women in STEM, since we are largely unrepresented in that space. Um, I think moving forward, it is important to continue increasing representation in these areas of STEM and technology, um, and including to inspire and empower women in that space. But also in the implementation of these tools, that we are keeping in mind the impacts, the real impacts that they have on our workforce and our population. And as Melvette pointed out earlier, these AI models, they use data and information that already exists. So if that information is biased to begin with, AI is going to represent that, if not exacerbate that. So it's important that we are aware of those biases and trying to reconstruct and build AI in a way that doesn't exacerbate the differences that we already have.
Looking for my mute button there. I think that's wonderful. Just to build on that a little bit, in the K-12 space or even in the pre-K-12 space and beyond, there's been a lot of thinking around, I'd say to Yukio's point, what becomes of me in this AI economy? What becomes of my children who are in college right now and thinking about careers that they maybe were thinking about since high school, but may no longer be there, right? Or will be there in a different format. And then to what extent will there be a job demand in certain areas? And so um, I think when it comes to women in particular, we've spent a lot of time here in the Danbury Public Schools really trying to build up the idea of women in STEM, women in coding, women in these more technical fields. And it's just not enough, right? Like this, we've made a quantum leap between just trying to include girls in more STEM fields to really trying to understand how, in particular, how AI impacts women specifically to your points earlier about, who builds, how does AI work, who builds it, and is it biased, right? Teaching digital citizenship to incorporate those things. I don't think that that is part of the curriculum, right? That needs to be built into the curriculum around digital citizenship is understanding who has the power with these technological advances and how we might position ourselves for those. The other thing is that comes into play is around AI ethics and how are we using it and how do women and ethics, the idea of women using AI and the cross section of ethical use come into play. And there are just differences in gender too, that in different perspectives that I think warrant some research and some delving into. In the Danbury Public Schools, this may be for another question a little bit later down the road, but you know, things like understanding how to capitalize on the AI generation. Do I know everything I need to know about prompt engineering? Is that a new form of literacy that we should be teaching in the Danbury Public School system? And does everybody have access to that? Do we embed AI in the humanities as much as we do in the hard subject areas, right? Where the humanities are where women and girls tend to choose electives and more courses in those areas. So how do we make sure that we're providing a well-rounded education on the functionality of AI and the accessibility of it in different types of electives and fields where women and girls are more tend to be more drawn to. So there's a lot at stake, and I think from a curricular standpoint, public school systems have an obligation to really delve deep and do some real auditing around the equity in the curriculums that they're building for students.
May I quickly respond to Kara's point? Because I think she brought up something really interesting. I wanted to jump off of that from a student perspective. I think in terms of, I know often we talk about STEM and humanities as like different subjects when I feel like they really should all be combined. Like when we are training students in STEM fields, they need to be learning and thinking about the ethics of the technologies that they are building. And I think that's something that we can emphasize better here in higher education. And then also, you know, talking to students about careers, like I said, we need more women in STEM, but we also need women in other spheres. I know I'm doing my public policy degree. Um, Obviously need more women in policy, but a question that continuously comes up in a lot of different fields is AI gonna take this job? So thinking about and empowering ourselves with realizing why it is important that humans are at the center of that work and where we can use AI to be more efficient and where human interaction with it is more useful. In terms of like making policy, for example, I wouldn't want to ask ChatGPT to solve a problem for me when there are so many different players and biases and like disparities that we should be thinking about that probably a human would be more equipped to think about. Whereas statistics or analyzing data could possibly be something that we give to AI. And it's important that we're teaching future workers that those skills to determine what should AI be doing and what should require more human intervention.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Harita and Dr. Casimiro. Megan and Yukio, what say you?
Yeah. I'll just briefly add that I think the empowerment is very important. It's very asset based. I think it looks like, again, across generations and across different stages of life. I think for women already existing in the workforce, I think that means support. I think that means transitional support, which we'll get into later, just really setting them up for success. And I think for the space that Dr. Casimiro is in, for young students and girls, it's that self-actualization. Whenever I think of empowerment, it's that opportunity that there's no bifurcation of having to choose between humanities and STEAM and STEM, and we're making a more holistic and rounded workforce for the state. And I'll just add this lens that this conversation is really timely and crucial right now because for the Connecticut legislature and some of our executive branch partners, we're at the point where there's a concurrence on the importance of emergence in the AI economy. But we're at those drawing stages where we're planning and we're having legislation being introduced to develop plans to navigate what this might look like in the state with those ethical questions and some of the ruminations on that. And so this is a crucial juncture because we need to include women in the functional plans and considerations so that we can empower them to have agency multi-generationally, no matter where they are in their career or academic journey.
Yeah, all my colleagues have said so many wonderful things, and we fill the full gamut. And and a part of supporting women in general in the workforce, right, is all those other extra things that come with supporting women in the workforce, things around childcare, after school care, before school care. If the training is not happening at their current workplace, they're going to have to go get somewhere else. That means loans, right? Student loans, additional education, all these things that we are making sure that we have in place so that we can have successful buildup of the workforce, especially for women. So, yeah, all important, all important.
I actually think that there's a little bit of there could be an opportunity here as a catch-up gap, right? So many women generationally who have not participated in exposure to certain STEM fields that are of a certain demographic, the age group wise. And how does AI then create a level playing field? Okay, so I didn't go to school for coding. I wasn't in girls' code growing up. I didn't do all of that, but I have access to all of these amazing tools now. And so with just a little bit of training around prompt engineering and understanding, achieving the results that I'm looking for, desired results through prompting and through building background knowledge in my own, closed system, how can I yield something that, maybe I would have had to go to school for 4 years to figure out how to do the same as someone else, perhaps maybe a male. So I do think that there are some wonderful opportunities to gap stop some of the skills, the harder skills that may have been more, found more in with certain genders than with females. So I think that there's an opportunity there. Getting women, bringing them into understanding how to do that is I think there's a component there that I think that we need to explore a little bit too. So how do you make women aware of these opportunities and how do you design them?
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for chiming in on that. And on my moderation style is definitely crosstalk. So I love that we are all jumping in and really kind of like unpeeling some of these layers here. Megan, I want to come to you. When we're looking at Connecticut, how does empowering women in AI align with Connecticut's broader economic development goals? I know you and I had a little bit of a conversation around that.
Yeah, and I mentioned before that there is this consensus, right, that AI is reshaping many sectors of our economy. So the state's economic future really depends on our ability to anticipate workforce needs and invest in programs that meet them. There's been a 40% increase in job postings that require AI skills since as recent as back from August 2024. And especially for those with associates or bachelor's degrees, 1 in 23 jobs now call for AI expertise. So we recognize that it's important. And I think in the broader overarching narrative of the state's economic goals, I know that the Connecticut Office of Workforce Strategy has partnered with the Business Higher Education Forum and the New England Board of Higher Education about the Tech Talent Accelerator that was launched in 2022. And I'll say, like, for where we are in this moment right now, we're currently launching the third phase of this Tech Talent Accelerator program. So this is starting to pilot a lot of the AI skills and programs across higher ed institutions like my alma mater at Southern Connecticut State. I know Haritha, UConn is doing some things, and even where I teach now at University of New Haven. So we're starting to see that shift with that recognition of its importance. So while the state is dedicated to workforce and economic development goals that strengthen talent pipelines, support state businesses, and creating opportunities, I think that it's starting to kind of put its money where its mouth is by some of these initiatives. And we still have some ways to go, which is why I'm very glad we're having this conversation. But that's kind of how it's feeding into our broader understanding.
Yeah, thank you so much around that. And then also I would say to our quantum CT folks out there, that big partnership between UConn and Yale. I they're also finalists in getting this federal money. So yay, let's root for us all. I would say that, what is it that our quantum folks can be learning about this whole AI pipeline, right? And so we are like knee deep in it with AI, and then they say quantum is emerging. Quantum is here as well, but we haven't really built out a lot of these systems. They're starting to build out these pipelines that start as early as kindergarten, and really trying to raise awareness around math literacy to have people, children who are interested in these STEM careers. And so, Kara, like, what are you seeing in Danbury Public Schools regarding particularly girls' participation and interest in STEM and computer science? And then what are the barriers that you see that are existing early on?
I think, we're starting to see an uptick. We're celebrating all types of, curricular related STEM programming, STEAM across the entire school district. We've been funding it at wonderful rates and resourcing programming and building programming. But I've always been very, very aware of the fact that the female participation is far less than male participation. That having said that, though, we have been encouraging our students to get in and join. We have a world-class VEX robotics championship program here in Danbury, but it had been male dominated for so long. We now have at least 4 or 5 or 6 females that are participating in there that are attracting other females and bringing them in. We're doing a lot of encouraging. Same thing with the way that we're redesigning education here. We've created 8 different academies, 7 academic academies that are focused on a variety of jobs and careers that are in high demand, high wage, high demand. And so with that, we are building pathways underneath all of those. We've used data from Department of Labor Statistics, Regional Workforce Board. So where are all the jobs? And how do we build new electives and programming so that our students can meet the demands of what's coming in this new economy, right? And so, for example, when we first started building these 7 academies, 21 pathways, we set out to say, one of those pathways, we started building this 4 years ago. One of those pathways should be an AI pathway, just artificial intelligence. This is what's up and coming. Everybody should have an artificial intelligence pathway in their high school. Well, by the time we got done building and opening the doors, we knew very quickly that AI had to become endemic in all the pathways. So
Yeah.
every single career was going to be impacted by AI. And we're also making sure that all of our students, as we do, again, I talk about equity audits, as we are encouraging students to rank order where they see themselves, we are providing a lot of opportunity to get students to understand where their assets are, what's available to them, encouraging them to kind of break down some barriers about anything that's stereotypical. We've got males in our CNA program. We've got girls in the robotics and the cybersecurity. And so we're really encouraging that crisscrossing and different ideas of thought. But the idea that artificial intelligence is just a pathway by itself, we've kind of thrown that to the wayside, and it is involved in every single pathway that we're going to be offering here. And we have to build in components to make sure that our students know how to leverage all that it can bring, and also to have the proper cautions in place as they're using it so that they know what to look out for. So lots of curriculum development, pathway and programming development here in Danbury Public Schools, all with the aim of preparing students for what comes after high school, which we know is going to look different in just a couple of years.
Yeah, wow, that is so much, and so glad that we have you here in this space, and hopefully you are inspiring other superintendents to look at STEAM in a different way. It is amazing that you have these 7 to 8 academies and 21 pathways. I think you said some really important things there, especially as we're looking at some careers and opportunities that used to be more gender specific, and now you're ensuring and encouraging students to look beyond those gender roles like nursing. I would have to say that I have experienced some of the benefits of what Danbury High School is doing in its partnership with New Vance and Northwell, and also WestCon, when you're having students who go to these nursing pathways. I was literally in the hospital back in November for surgery, and I'm going to tell you, I had 2 male nurses. One was the head charge nurse for the evening, and he said he went to Danbury High School in Western Connecticut, and he was in the program, and that's how he came to be doing what he was doing. And so I do think that the importance of what you're saying around building these pipelines and also encouraging girls in particular to go into some of those non-traditional gender roles in nursing, that we might say, oh, here the girls go over here and they become teachers and they do the nursing, as opposed to really getting them excited about math and getting them into these STEAM careers. Megan, I want to come back to you on, as we're looking at economic opportunities. What is Connecticut missing when women are underrepresented in the AI workforce? Like what are we missing out on?
Yeah, I think there's two lenses to consider this from. I think when we look at the AI workforce itself, we know that women ages 16 and older make up a little bit over 60% of our state's workforce, which is also higher than the national average by gender makeup. And so with that significance in the workforce, when we look at a granular industry, or when we look more granularly at an industry like advanced manufacturing, where AI adoption has grown exponentially, women in our state only occupy 30% of that workforce. And so without intentionality, without thought, for the way that women are not being represented, this industry and experience barriers that have to do with both entry in the field, and once they're in the field itself also, this underrepresentation by women can just exacerbate existing gender workforce disparities, kind of similar to what Haritha was talking about in the beginning, right? It can serve to exacerbate some of our disparities, especially across gender, that we already have when it's drawing from data and when we're still using that old framework of workforce approach. And then I would also say, in broader fields, we also miss out on opportunities to continue to diversify our workforce and support diverse workforces that broaden thought and innovation when women are underrepresented in things like entrepreneurialism, where they aren't maybe as AI infused yet as things like advanced manufacturing, but we know that 41.2% of small businesses in our state are women owned. And we also know that they contribute more than 16 billion to our state's GDP each year. And so there's been conversations at the legislature, in state government, and the executive branch to start infusing AI into our infrastructures for small businesses, entrepreneurialism, when women are often left out of this skills cross training or this transitional training that can also create barriers and disparities, even given the fact that 13.5% of small businesses are minority owned, and there's not too much granular data on that intersectionality of minority and women owned. And I know we're having a conversation to plug our conversation on Wednesday about compounding impact on underrepresented communities, but we miss these opportunities to really include and broaden the competitiveness that our workers in the state can really bring to different economic sectors.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, and good plug for our conversation we're having Wednesday, March 25th at 2 p.m. on Bridging the Digital Divide. We're going to be looking at communities of color and access to education and other opportunities. And so thank you so much for that, Megan. I want to go now to Yukio and Harika and really look at kind of breaking down for folks who might not know. We don't want to assume that everyone watching this understands some of these barriers, but what are the fundamental barriers that prevent women from fully participating in Connecticut's AI economy? And so some of those fundamental things might be childcare, broadband access, funding. Like, what are the things that are preventing women from fully participating in Connecticut's AI economy? Yukio.
Sure, thank you. Um, Having been, right, a parent that worked for a little bit, but couldn't afford childcare and had to leave the workforce. I mean, childcare, across the board still for any family really is a big issue. And so, this legislative session, there's been things to try to support more families to be able to access childcare. And, if parents don't have a place where where their child can safely go, we can't bring our kids right to work. We can't freely do the things that we need to do to be able to be successful. And when there's that stress and worry around finding a spot, that also just adds to the stress that families feel, the inability to make choices and the decisions and the moves that they need to make to be able to attend training, to be able to, right, go for that new job that might be in a different field or a little bit further out. Like there are so many things that get in the way of women being able to participate in the workforce. Um, and so, that is one thing that for no matter what, I think in any field, in any job, childcare really is a barrier for a lot of our families. And, even like Megan had brought up things around like some of the funding gaps for our women-owned or minority-owned businesses, but there's also things like the gender pay gap, right? And while, we're at this point where a lot of folks are coming into AI with um, at the same level of, like things are new, we got to get going, we got to move in on this. But if it's an area that has traditionally been more male driven, and women are coming into the workforce, we really have to make sure that that pay gap does not exist, right? And that we are on equal footing if we come with the same experience and the background and the training. Like we have to address that gender pay gap. And I think broadband access, I think Melvet, you had mentioned broadband access. I think Connecticut is doing a good job in making and putting money towards that infrastructure, but sometimes it's not the infrastructure, right? It's how much is it to get internet at your house every month? And also just the cost of the hardware that you might need. It's an investment to go from doing a lot of things on your phone to like having to, right, pay for a computer that is fast enough, that has enough memory to be able to do all this stuff. So there's a lot of things that might still be barriers, but I think, policy wise, there are things starting to be put in place to support our women and families.
Yukio, Harika, what are some of the barriers that prevent women from fully participating in Connecticut's AI economy?
Of course. So I think like I mentioned earlier, we're seeing especially in my generation this growing involvement of women in STEM. And I think we're truly seeing the effects of that. Many of my close friends are currently um, women in CS or serving in engineering. Um, but there is still that underrepresentation, right? Underrepresentation in the sense of the people creating AI are is primarily male dominated, and the people making the policies surrounding AI is also heavily male dominated. So I'm really glad that we're having this conversation today about AI policy, so we can feature women and center women in that conversation. I will say also from a higher education perspective, in talking about these women-dominated fields, whether it be teaching, nursing, etc. Um, I think from like a higher education perspective and a curricular perspective, we need to be incorporating AI education into really every single field because AI, whether you're going into STEM, whether you're going into a humanities major, all of those things have been impacted by AI. Policymaking will be impacted by AI. Any statistics, any data analysis that we're doing has been impacted by AI. Art has been impacted by AI. Healthcare has been impacted by AI. And if those conversations about how AI is impacting those spaces aren't being had, that is a problem. In teaching in particular, which is a very woman-dominated space, and nursing as well, we could use more conversations about how AI is changing that space, whether it be lesson planning to patients trying to look up their healthcare diagnoses and things like that, which I've done too, but it's very common. You know, instead of Googling their symptoms, they're ChatGPTing their symptoms. And we need to be talking about the effects of that, the impacts of that, both positive and negative. And that's been hitting the news a lot. Um, we're also so yeah, incorporating those conversations, but also there are a lot of we need to rethink the skills that we're teaching in the classroom. Certain skills, I think one prime example, for example, is transcripting, right? Before that used to be secretarial jobs, are primarily women-led. But now those are the jobs that have been easily taken over by AI. We have things like Otter and other AI systems that can easily transcript our meetings, summarize them. Sometimes they're simply built into these video calling systems. Um, so at that point, it's time to reflect and say, hey, you know, this is a cool skill to have, but is it really useful in the economy anymore? So we need to be rethinking how AI is going to reshape the need for different skills, not just in the STEM field, but in every single field that we have. And that's something that we should be considering in higher education.
Yeah, thank you. You're so right. And last year we held a forum on equitable AI and really particularly looking at how AI was impacting communities of color, whether it was healthcare, education, workforce development, all the things. And one of the conversations that we continue to have as I did some research was really on how AI was impacting women in the workforce. And the data that came out of the McKinsey Global Report really showed us, right, and awakened some folks. And I was kind of like ringing a bell for months afterward. Was that there are jobs that AI is going to start replacing people, and you kind of said something like with the note taking, the transcribing, some of the entry level roles that we see in offices and different workplaces, also in customer service. We have to look at a lot of those jobs are held by women or filled by women. And also, a lot of those jobs, we're talking about entry level positions, many of those are held by women of color. If y'all want to talk more about that, come back on Wednesday for that whole conversation. But here's what the data tells us is that, 30% of work hours are going to be taken by AI. Now, AI is not a bad thing, right? It is a tool that can be used to make things better, faster, quicker, more efficient, right, to say the least, right? It can do many things. But we have to look at how we're going to then reskill people who went to school for a certain thing. And now AI is going to be able to do that thing better. We also are seeing it in some other jobs, where people are saying, white collar jobs, like AI is infiltrating all the spaces. And so how are we then reskilling and upskilling the workforce? If you were at entry level position, how can we train you in higher levels of management? How can we put you on a different pathway to upskill? Or maybe, you were in customer service or you were in hospitality, you were in retail. And your job now within the next 3 years is going to be taken over by AI, or be automated in some way. How can we reskill you into a different career pathway? And so I think this is the conversation that Connecticut has started to have. Our Office of Workforce Strategy is aware of this. But also employers need to be aware. Also, women need to be aware that the job that you worked so long to get or that you're now comfortable in might, be impacted and affected by AI. And so I think that, to your point, Haritha, there needs to be a prioritization of this as we look at moving forward within the next 3 years. People don't understand it's not even 5 years anymore. We've been having this conversation for 2 years now. In the next 3 years, that AI will be impacting the workforce in different pathways. So I just would ask, and Haritha, maybe you know this, or maybe Tara, you know this, the answer to this question, but do we know of any apprenticeship or mentorship programs that could bridge women effectively from their current career pathways into AI careers? And then are there things that are available for, to Yukio's point, working mothers? Is there anything that we know out there? And then also I'm going to invite people who are in our space, if you know about something, put it in the Q&A.
Well, I would love to hear if someone has something specific, but I do know that it's a huge need, I think, right now, particularly with the group of students who are in college. So we have an issue with folks who need to upskill, kind of been in the workforce and needed to modernize anyways. But now you've got a group of students who I'm very concerned. I'm going to say they're sold a bill of goods coming into college, right? They're in the middle of their college experience and they're already hearing about students who are, in their mid 20s now who have graduated and are sort of this first tier, this rung of students sort of being let go. I say students, but recent graduates, because those entry level jobs, right? And so I do think that there is a bridge that needs to happen right now with current students and or recent graduates. In addition, that's a unique position in addition to upskilling folks who are probably in their 40s or 50s who are just looking to, sharpen their skills regardless. But it is far less expensive to build in the strategies and the tools that students need while they're still with us in K-12 than it is to go through 4 years of education. This helps inform the choices you make, right? Which is the whole reason why we're doing this academy model is that we're doing a lot of early exposure, very early on models, seeing people out in the workforce, bringing people from the workforce and talking about how things are changing. But there is this unique age group in the kind of the early and mid 20s that I'm concerned about specifically, almost regardless of gender, that I'm hearing from family members, and I won't say where they work, but big companies that they're being asked to utilize these tools, right? These AI tools and learn, and they're training on these tools, right? So they're building, making these machines smarter in the field and the question is, am I going to lose my job? And the response
Right.
is well, not so much, not all of you, but we're slowing down the hiring. So
Mhm.
there are new grad programs, the students coming in, those like first and second year research assistants and the folks coming in, or recent grads and interns, those are going to start to narrow because they're holding on to some of the employees that they're going to be focusing in on to learn with these tools that will help program these tools. But it's going to mean that the students, the recent grads that would be normally coming in year one and year two, that's going to slow down a little bit until these corporations and these companies figure out how to right size their industry with this new technology. So I do think there does need to be something, a bridge, if you will, Melvet, and I'm be willing, open to hearing if anybody else has some ideas about what that looks like.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to that as a member of that early 20s community.
Yeah. I'm
There's
nervous for you.
I'm nervous for me too, and I wanted to speak to that anxiety that students my age are feeling. Really in a lot of fields. I know even my computer science friends, and this is why I want to like also like caution against pushing so many students into computer science, pushing them into STEM, because even STEM is under threat right now. Every single industry is attacked by that. Computer science, especially, is oversaturated. So even without this AI stuff, there's a lot of computer science graduates and just not enough positions. So I, for one, am glad to be hearing that our computer science program here at UConn, we are focusing on artificial intelligence. But also even AI can code. like I've been able to talk to ChatGPT, ask for some code for my stats assignment, and it'll give me code. Um, so my computer science major friends, they can ask ChatGPT for code too, or any other AI. I just keep saying ChatGPT. Um, but even AI can code. So
Yeah.
that's fearful. All of my peers, we are scared that we might not have a job in the future. Um, because we don't know. AI changes so quickly, technology changes really quickly. Um, and it's hard to do this, but I do think it's worth being more proactive about it, kind of figuring out sooner rather than later, especially in higher education, what skills students are going to need in the future as opposed to focusing what they need in the present. Um,
Mm. Yeah.
I think proactiveness really, really matters here.
Yeah. And that's why this conversation, we're trying to be proactive about it, even though like we're stepping into a reactive space, because this is already happening. And in my notes, and I have, some things here for our viewers, people who are listening and watching as we're looking at some AI programs in the state and initiatives, Accenture apprenticeship program, that's with Connecticut State college systems, the community colleges. They have a year-long paid in-person apprenticeship focusing on IT skills and mentorship. And then there's the Technology Fellowship, which is with Synchrony Knowledge House, which is a year-long free part-time training program in Stanford. You can look all these things up. There's the Connecticut Online A Academy. Some of you were trying to sign up for that, and it was like sold, not sold out, but you couldn't get in because it's a free online program for beginners covering AI fundamentals, prompt engineering, and you get a Google AI Essential Certificate. I know some folks who have gone through that as well. CSCU has AI in manufacturing, which is a micro credential program tailored for professionals in manufacturing, covering AI enabled tools that enhance production. So again, right, like we're trying, Western Connecticut State University on my side of the state has an applied generative AI certificate. It's an 8-week program. It's a hybrid course designed for working professionals. So working professionals to learn AI tools without requiring coding skills, right? Because that's where some of us my age, right? We get into the Gen X folks who are like, I don't want to do coding, but I need to learn AI. And then UConn AI has a training program. UConn is launching an AI-enabled guided intelligence systems or AEGIS to prepare engineering workers for agentic AI design. So there are some things happening. University of St. Joseph, Fairfield University, University of New Haven. Everyone is kind of getting a little bit of something, but the state has a duty to make sure that all of these things are easily accessible to folks and that we have a clear plan ahead, a strategy where people can tap in and have access. And in this particular time, we're talking about women. And so, part of what we had hoped to cover today, we just couldn't, we pulled this together pretty quickly, and we wanted some of our small business leaders to be able to participate. We couldn't really get anyone. So I just want to cover this briefly as we address women entrepreneurs and women who are small business owners, right? And there's like this double-edged reality, right? While AI is simultaneously creating these unprecedented opportunities and new challenges for women entrepreneurs, right? AI can be good. AI is also challenging. And so on one hand, AI tools are really kind of like leveling the player field, or like, we like to use this new word, democratizing access to capabilities that were once exclusive to large corporations, right? Whether it's from sophisticated marketing automation or advanced financial analytics. But on the other hand, women business owners face some unique barriers in adopting these technologies effectively. And so we have, here some immediate opportunities where there's this customer service revolution where AI chatbots and virtual assistants allow small businesses to provide 24/7 customer support without additional staffing costs. If you watched us the other day on Saturday, we covered some of the ways that AI is transforming business. I'm going to ask Yuki or Megan to put the link from our YouTube in the chat for that particular replay. And we'll also post it with this as well. There's this whole ability for AI platforms to help create targeted campaigns and content that previously required people to get, ad agencies to do this for you. In the financial management space, AI accounting tools and cash flow prediction systems provide insights that help people better understand their business plan, right? This is all for small businesses. And then also with content creation, AI writing and designing tools enable small businesses to produce professional marketing materials at scale. I mean, you can go into LinkedIn right now, and if you have a paid subscription of any sort, AI will write stuff for you. It will write your posts. But there's like a participation gap. And so research shows women-owned businesses are adopting AI at slower rates than their male counterparts, and which is often due to limited access to technical training and resources. Time constraints is the next one, right? Women business owners often juggle multiple responsibilities. Can you raise your hand if you're a woman and juggling multiple responsibilities? And then there are concerns about implementation costs and complexity. Sometimes women business owners don't understand how little it can cost to start out with AI. And then, quite frankly, there's just a lack of AI literacy and confidence. And so I encourage female entrepreneurs and women business owners to really start first with AI literacy, right? Take some free online courses through platforms like Coursera, right? Also, MIT has like an introduction to AI, like start at the basic level. And then also, I encourage you to join like women-focused tech communities like Women in AI or your local SCORE chapter. I know we have a SCORE chapter here and on the western side of Connecticut through Western Connecticut State University. Join these little groups that have an AI focus. Subscribe to free AI newsletters, like of course Harvard Business Review has an AI newsletter. MIT has one. That company I mentioned to you earlier, Uplevel, which is UPLEVYL. You can also start with AI tools that save time immediately, right? Like your scheduling assistants or, those that do some social media automation. And then I would just say also like use AI learning during some dead time that you have, whether you're commuting or you're waiting in between meetings, like schedule some time just to do 10 minutes of let me learn AI or let me practice with AI. So those are our tips for small women business owners. I would invite the panelists. Do you have anything else to share on that, or should I continue? Let's close out with some state policy. Are we good? I think we're good to move on. Okay, Aretha.
I would just also encourage playing around with AI, like in those, 10 minutes a day, like go on and see what AI can do. You'll be surprised. So
Yeah,
please explore.
please explore. Thank you. And so when we're looking at policy solutions, for the group, I would say, one of the things that is kind of up in the legislature this time around for 2026 here in Connecticut, we had Senate Bill 4, Senate Bill 5, Senate Bill 86, that was a governor's bill, Senate Bill 4, Senate Bill 5 were Senator Maroney's bills. All right, and they're all looking at like online privacy and chatbot protections and some other things as well. But there's also Senate Bill 417, and that bill requires the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development to create a plan for an AI small business program, right? And really, it's encouraging small businesses to use AI to boost productivity and to improve the quality of their products and services so that they can compete in these larger AI environments. And so I would just offer that to folks to really be following and watching and also contacting whoever you need to contact to get in on it or to have your voice heard, whether you support these pieces of legislation or not. But as we talk about SB 417 and others, I'm going to go to our panel and ask this question: what policies or other considerations do we need to discuss to advance gender equity in AI roles, right? So I want to open that conversation up. I also want to like just add this caveat, like we had this smaller conversation around an article that someone shared with me around how AI is creating like Stepford wives. So I just, or the intention of creating AI was to really have Stepford wives. So I just want us to think about childcare and training and funding and procurement policies and legislative proposals. When we're thinking about all these things, what do we need in order to advance gender equity in AI roles? And so whoever wants to jump in first.
We need education coming from the education
Education.
person. Just very simply, the more exposure that we have earlier on, the more that these opportunities will be made available, and the more understanding of the biases that exist within the whole scope, I think is key. So for me, it's early education about the power of the tool and the also the areas to take caution with.
So I'm going to jump off of that and say um, yes to education, and also like having an AI literacy night for parents, right? And doing that dual capacity, like building and learning at the school level so that, yes, as parents, we can support our kids going through this and not be scared of it, right? And I think that's also a great entryway for some folks to understand, oh, these are things that I need to know about and I can apply to my own right career and or just new things to train myself on. So I love, building that space for families and children at the schools because naturally, right, those all come together at some point. But I know there's a lot to do around like literacy night, math night, AI night. But I think that would be a great space for parents to be able to understand and support their children's growth and their own growth. So,
I agree.
Yeah, and I think broadly on expanding that, when we're talking about training for broader communities, training, teaching, other engagement strategies, when we talk about gender equity and also inclusion, and I bring up that point again about intersectionality, um, one of the things that we were thinking about when we read SB 417, but I think can apply to a broader lens, is like how are we also doing gender inclusive work, but also work that has cultural cognizance, for that nexus, like racially, culturally, ethnically, across underserved communities. That's a problem we're seeing across the board with different state programs and state training efforts, having that inclusion and also incorporating accessible training. I'll always beat that drum of language access and culturally responsive technical assistance so that we can help build the digital literacy in those communities that's necessary to understand and responsibly integrate artificial intelligence technology so that they're kind of considering the same things as they take up that mantle. And then broadly, to harken back to what Yukia was talking about earlier, we need to take a very informed approach on how other existing initiatives beyond the trainings that we develop, but how is the Women's Business Development Council, Connecticut Innovations, and even things like the Child Care Business Opportunity Fund, how are these channels informing each other or not as they play into our broader workforce ecosystem so that we can help workers and our state economy thrive. So when we think about families' economic mobility, we need to think about that lens holistically. So those would be some considerations I would offer.
Yeah, to definitely wanted to second what everyone has been saying. I think AI literacy is super important for everyone. And incorporating it in education, like Kara was saying, at the K to 12 level, but also in higher education. And I wanted to emphasize that we are having to strive to have these conversations in every single field about how AI impacts um, every single sector, but also talking more and educating the public, and they should be part of those AI literacy programmings about responsible use and ethical use. And I know Melvet, you brought up that the article, and it might sound a little odd, but it's a real issue, and I know some fears that students my age have already. We know that mental health is a problem, especially for members of Gen Z. Though there is growing discourse around mental health and accessing help, um, a lot of people are turning to AI to deal or help cope with mental health issues. And there's been a lot of ethical concerns that have been, I'm sure you've read the news about AI not really being the best thing to go to in terms of suicide or self-harm, um, or if people are having mental health issues, they really should be talking to a person and not AI, since AI is not the best thing to talk to in that case. Um, So, educating about safety, really, this really comes down to safety in those areas, but also acknowledging the disparities, especially when it comes to mental health. As an Asian American, mental health is largely um, stigmatized in our community, so it makes sense why people would turn to AI and be like, if I can't get my parents to take me to a therapist, or I feel scared to go to a person to talk about mental health, that they're going to go to AI and talk to AI about it. So, I think that's just one example of many about how AI is used differently and can impact different groups of people differently, so that we are taking that intersectional identity lens and perspective on AI.
Yeah, thank you. I think you all said some very important things, and I would chime in. I think AI literacy is important, and also digital fluency, right? I think people have to understand AI is not going away, and so if we're looking at this that helps people advance gender equity, meaning women have access and opportunity to engage in AI roles and also are considered when changes are happening. Um, and also this conversation, we'll talk about it on Wednesday, communities of color. Um, you know, a lot of this has to do with access, and also a lot of it has to do with exposure, right? And so I think I would add those things to the list as well. And so as we close out, and we'll see if there are any questions in the chat or the Q&A. Looking ahead to 2027, and we've talked through some of this, but I really want us to, just do a quick round robin on, if we could think of one thing, just one, what one change would have the biggest impact on empowering women in Connecticut's AI economy? And if you need a moment to think, let's take a moment. But one change that would have the biggest impact on empowering women in Connecticut's AI economy.
I have one. Um, and I think it's a simple one change, having conversations. What we're doing here, this needs to happen everywhere.
Again, with the school system, I think AI is an incredible tool for mothers in particular who want to advocate for their children on a variety of complicated topics that they may not feel they have the capital and the have the skills to navigate. I have received letters this year, emails that were clearly written by AI, but held me to a different standard in accountability because someone knew how to navigate and prompt to pull up a law, legislation, or something where they felt was something was lacking and held me to task on that. And so it has helped some of our parents, and particularly women who don't speak English as their native language, to empower them to help their children. And so from a standpoint of if there's one thing I could do is I would teach women just how to use the tool to support their own child's education and to navigate the capital that's needed to do that, because if you can empower your children, you can empower that yourself to empower your children, you've affected an entire generation, creating access for that child K-12 and opportunity. So for me, it would be teaching women how to use it to advocate for their children's educational needs.
Love it. Who's next?
Um, I would say as a, for women who have children, right? I think fixing things like childcare spots, right? Because if they're working, they're, whatever job that they're doing, but then are needing to get additional training, if that training happens to happen or happens to take place outside of their normal work hours, they might have to figure out how to do the additional childcare somehow. There's waiting, right? There's waiting spots for that. There's not enough spots for that. And there aren't enough alternative hours for childcare as well to be able to do maybe like an evening class. So I would, put money into childcare and any of those supports that really help free up some space for parents.
Yeah, I think what comes to mind for me kind of complements Haritha's point, talking about creating feedback loops, especially in our capacity and how we preciously function at the CWCSEO. Community knows their lived experience best. And I think it's good that the state is wrestling with the role that we play, but also creating these feedback loops of what's working, what's not. We create these pilot programs and making sure, as I talked about with intentional and thoughtful inclusion, as we draft these plans and pass these work groups, making it malleable enough and flexible enough to know that if something's not working, we can pivot. So I know we talked about some of these things being reactionary, and while the ball keeps kind of rolling, I think there's still an opportunity for us to practice that reflexivity and give the chance to adapt if we need to, so that we really support community and uplift lived experience, especially for women.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I would end by saying the one thing I think that we can do is change the narrative that women shouldn't be afraid of AI. Women is not, it's not taking your job. We own AI. AI is a tool. Um, AI is the future, but so are we. And so when we start using the tools that we're given, then we have power. And so I would say we change the narrative that women understand their power in using AI, which would feed into all the things you're saying. Women have to have space to do it, right? Sometimes they need childcare supports. Sometimes they need people to leave them alone so they can focus and learn the new thing. Sometimes they just need access and opportunity to get to the tools and to be able to use them and play around with them, or have access and opportunity to take the courses or to go into that new career pathway. And education is key. So whether we as women decide to use an app to learn AI, because there's stuff that I've done, there's a little reminder that says, 10 minutes a day, here's your AI play. But I think that we need to shift the narrative for women to understand that they have the power over AI. AI is a tool. And at the end of the day, as much as AI will advance, it will always need human interaction to be successful. And so I would leave it there. I invite now any questions that we might have or need to address from our participants in the room. And I would give a big congratulations and thank you, much gratitude to our esteemed panel today. But are there any questions? Please put them in our Q&A now if you haven't already. I don't think I see anything new here.
There isn't anything in the Q&A, but from one of our colleagues, many women are already balancing work, family, and other responsibilities. How do we make sure AI upskilling and training opportunities are actually accessible and realistic for them? And I think some of that has, we've answered a little bit of that. But yeah, there's a lot of pressures.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that I can answer that question. I think that we can work together with employers, with the folks who are in our Office of Workforce Strategy and Workforce Development groups to ensure that people, women in particular, have access to them, and also like language access, and all the things that we know that we need. When we're talking about accessibility, that is a big category, very broad. And so I think that it's the continued work with our partners in the executive branch and also in community and also in our universities and our K through 12 system to understand what is needed. And also from women, like what is it that you do really need in order to do this? I would also give a shout out to that we would take on AI and math literacy just as much and just with the same amount of passion and excitement and fervor that we did with early literacy and the literacy movement. This is equally as important. And so many people shy away from math. It's the special thing, but we really need to see math literacy just as important as anything else, just important as reading. No one cares about kids writing anymore for some reason. They think they can just type on a laptop. But I think math literacy is something important that we should be looking at too. Um, other question, comments?
Sure. Yeah. So we've got two more in the Q&A. Oh, another one coming in. Is there any specific skills or experiences that help women succeed in AI careers?
Um, yeah, that's an interesting one. So I'll start, and then I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent to share maybe what she's seeing because my answer is probably not as great. But I do think there are some executive functions. AI careers are vast and broad, right? And so again, what Dr. Casemiro said is that it goes across every sector. So you're going to have the specialty for that sector, and then you're going to have the propensity to use technology to make it better, right? So that's a skill set. Like, are you a person who works well with technology, right? So you can be in nursing, and that's your skill set, that's your main focus. But how is AI then making the career of nursing and the skill sets that are required, right? Better, faster, stronger, more efficient. Um, I think people who are in math careers, like that person who loves math, right? Okay, then maybe you're going to go into AI, but maybe you're in the coding space. Maybe you're doing generative AI or or creating AI agents, right? If you're an engineering kind of mind, a problem solver, maybe you're building agents that help with different problems or help do things. So um, I I think there are many skill sets, and I think this is the whole thing that people like, I don't have a skill set, right? But you won't know until you get into it. Dr. Casimiro, what would you say?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. An AI career versus AI in every career are two different things. So, there's the people who are building AI tools for specific functionality. So, for example, I just went to a conference that a lot of the ed tech startups are all using AI, and they're building AI platforms to do specific things for the field of education. And so they want to run those things by superintendents to get their feedback on what are the problems we're looking to solve using this technology. So those are folks that have careers in AI that are using, building new tools and rooms with AI to use for certain things. And then there's everybody else, right? There's the superintendent that's sitting on here that needs something, very quick explanation of something that, might be confusing. There could be a spreadsheet and a data table that I need for a meeting coming up that would have taken me all weekend to put together that now opens up and creates more time and space for me to use. So on other more important things. So, what it's doing is, for everybody, I think is this idea that it's embedded. It's sort of like where's my calculator on my desk? I don't think that people lost a lot of jobs when the calculator came, right? Some mathematicians were quite familiar, but but even using a calculator, you have to know what to put into it. What you put in is what you get back. So when it comes to using it, the prompt engineering is huge. It's really knowing how to ask the right questions, really leveraging a thinking process, a designed thinking process to achieve an outcome that you desire, and really learning how to navigate that. I think is going to be really the greatest thing in terms of any career and any outlook for their job. Is the people who know how to maximize it the greatest will be the ones still standing with their jobs, right? Because it becomes a productivity tool and a tool to create and move an industry forward, as opposed to staying stagnant with it. So got to be really good at question generation. Generating great questions and refining those questions is going to be a new, really honed in skill.
Thank you. Two more questions here, and some of this we did cover in our chatbot protection session that we had on Saturday, but it's around, what data is used to teach the AI model, and also some of the privacy issues, right, around using AI, and learning AI. And I think Megan, did you have something to say that you wanted to contribute?
Yeah, just something brief, in the things that we've been kind of talking about throughout this conversation. And I think um emphasizing AI not as a, again, with the Melvet and shifting that narrative, emphasizing AI not as a replacement, but as like a bolster tool. And when I teach with college freshmen, right, that component when we talked about combining and not bifurcating STEM with the humanities, like having that critical inquiry is so important because we still have that discernment that sometimes, probably in the near future, AI might have, but pairing that with the results, even sometimes when I do, in my capacity at the legislature, like a modest search to track a bill, or how the news outlets are writing about a bill, and I look at the AI overview, right? If a bill passed the House but hasn't passed the Senate chamber, sometimes it'll say that this bill passed in 2025, right? And so recognizing where it's getting this data. I know that depending on what AI model, it can draw from a lot of diverse data sets, and it scrapes a lot of public data sets. Like in the state of Connecticut, we have the open data portal with our partners at the Office of Policy Management, OPM. So I think that learning, that discernment, and that critical inquiry component is really important when you think about yourself as a complementary actor with AI as that tool. So I just wanted to add that twinge of perspective, but completely agree with Adriana's point that it's important to know where these come from and the limitations as they currently exist and exist in the future.
Yeah. Can I add on to that? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Of course. So I really liked the calculator example that Kara was bringing up, and I wanted to add on to that, this other component. Even though we have calculators, we are still teaching our students arithmetic, and you should still know how addition works, how subtraction works, etc. And I think the same thing applies to AI. Like you can question generation's point, you can put those questions in AI, and we should learn how to do that. But we should still focus on making sure that students are good writers on their own and that students are able, in the policy case, be able to track a bill without just asking AI, where is this bill in the process? And with that also comes an understanding of how is AI even getting that data? I know Megan touched on it, but it's also important to know that AI is just looking at all the data out there. It doesn't really have a sense of what is more reliable and what isn't. Well, as of right now. Sometimes AI sources a lot of the information it spits out to you from Reddit posts, and that might not always be the most accurate. So it's still important that students are still learning all of those tools and learning how to do it on AI and understanding how AI actually works in order for maximum literacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Aretha. And Yukio, were you going to add something? I'm sorry. I would also say when it comes to data privacy, like your data, like when you're using AI, you can go into the settings and say, don't share my data, right? Like you can turn it off. And then also AI tells you, we just have to listen. AI has whatever app you go into, there's a disclaimer on the bottom in tiny print that says AI output may not be accurate always, right? And so you have to, and it says check important information. And so you have to realize that this is sometimes like a research assistant. It's not perfect. Just like there's human error, there's error that exists within data systems and in the digital world. And so, like when you're doing things and you're asking AI to do something and you're asking it to create something, you have to say, don't make it up. Or if you're looking for a particular article, can you please find me an article on how many kangaroos live in Connecticut? And I want the source to be, from the Hartford Current. Like it'll make up an article if it doesn't exist. You have to say, don't make up an article. Just give me something that's already out there. So again, it's a tool. We have power over it. It's a tool that can be used to do some incredible things. And women can be very powerful when they understand it and start using it. If there are no other questions, I think we've answered all the questions in our Q&A. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to our friends on Facebook Live for watching. We will be sharing this recording widely with our other one on chatbot protections. And then Yukio, if you can throw up the slide for our event happening on Wednesday afternoon, March 25th at 2 p.m. We'll be continuing this conversation just with the different wins.
Yes, and I put in the link in the chat for everyone to be able to register.
Yep. So it's our
And
third event in our CWCSEO AI series. The event is Bridging the Digital Divide. It's coming on our screen. There's a QR code that you will see that you can also just click. So it's the second one over here on the right. Bridging the Digital Divide, AI and Communities of Color, Exploring Education, Access, and Cultural Equity. And so we hope to see you Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thank you so much. We are signing off and we are wishing you well. And we're hoping that you will be curious and take action so that you can learn more about AI. Start exploring those tools, even if you do it 5 to 10 minutes a day. It's better than not doing anything at all. Thank you so much. And thank you to our esteemed panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.